Today we're making brown butter cornbread, Christopher Kimball's Milk Streak cookbook. It's a little different than the cornbread I normally make because normally I don't brown the butter first, but this one does do that and gives it a bit of a more nutty, rich flavor. And you can see it has a nice crumb to it, nice and brown. Stay tuned and you'll see how I make it. So in order to make this brown buttered cornbread, I've got 8 teaspoons of butter here. This is unsalted butter. The recipe, the Milk Streak recipe, uses salted, so I've added an extra 1/4 teaspoon of salt to my dry ingredients. So in the dry ingredients here, I've got about 2 and a bit cups of cornmeal, and into that I'm going to add, and here what I've got is 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, and 3/4 of a teaspoon of just regular table salt. So that goes into the dry ingredients. And I've also got a little bit of sugar, is 2 teaspoons of just white sugar in there. And that we will just mix up a little bit. Now, the wet ingredients, we've got 2 cups of buttermilk, which go in here. And 2 large eggs. And we'll whisk that up as well. Now the key with this recipe is the brown butter. So I've got my pan here, the skillet. This is going to go on the stove. I'm just going to melt this butter for about 4 minutes till it just starts to brown, and I will be back. So you can see here the milk solids are just starting to get brown. It's starting to smell toasty. So I'm going to take this off the heat now, and we will use some of this butter for the batter. So we're going to take about 6 tablespoons of the 8 and throw it into our buttermilk. One more here, and this we're just going to mix in here. Now we are going to add our liquids to our dry. You can see that looks pretty good. You can see little flecks of the brown butter in there, and it does smell delicious. So now what we want to do is go back to the stove, and we're just going to finish browning this butter till it's really quite deep and brown, and then that's going to further enhance the flavor. You can see this has been going for about close to 2 minutes. The foam on top is nice and brown. You got the nice brown bits inside, so I would say that is done. I'll take it off the heat. And now the batter goes in the pan. So we're going to throw this on the stove just for a minute first before we put it in the oven, and that just until we see the edges bubbling, and that'll help set the bottom. And then we will throw it in the oven at 450 for about 15 to 20 minutes. You can see the edges are bubbling. It's been about a minute, so now we're going to throw it in the oven. You can see I'm cooking this in my pizza oven, but you can do this in a regular oven as well. Pulling this out of the oven. That looks good, nice brown on top. Interesting crust here. So need to let this sit for about 5 minutes to cool a bit and set, and then I will turn it out onto the wire rack. So take the handle off. Let's turn this upside down and see what happens. There we go. You can see there's a little bit of burning from the milk solid, so I might have overdone it a bit when I browned the butter, but we're just going to let that cool again now. I'm going to let it cool for about 15 minutes, and then we'll cut a slice and see how it tastes. Here's the finished product. So I had it cooling on a rack for about 15 minutes. It probably could have cooled more, but I really wanted to give it a try. You can see it's got a great crumb to it, nice and brown. We'll just give it a shot here. That is good cornbread. It certainly doesn't need any butter because there's about 8 tablespoons of butter in there. And so it's quite moist, and that buttery flavor really does come through. So I encourage you to give it a shot. Thank you very much.